This is one of those questions that can either make or break your entire Airtable system. And that is, should the data I'm tracking be in a single table or spread out across multiple tables? Why is it important to answer this question early on? The first reason is because if we don't answer this question early on, we're probably going to have to rebuild something later on. So let's make it easier on ourselves and build the efficient structure from the very beginning. The second reason is that it's going to make reporting on the data in our system way easier later down the road. And the third reason is automations become so much easier to build, as well as integrations, when we have a simple, efficient data structure. So the more often we can get all of our data into one table, the easier it is to build robust systems later on. Now, the one rule that I would say is really important to follow when trying to make this decision is asking yourself, is the data that I'm tracking of the same type or the same entity? And that means that if we're tracking a table of cats and we've got a table of dogs, we could probably put those two tables into one table and call them animals, okay? We're kind of looking for the higher level umbrella that encompasses as much of the data as possible so that we can build an automation or build interfaces, build reporting on all of that data really easily and efficiently. So there's a couple signs that I always like to look out for to help me decide whether data should be in a single table or multiple tables. And the first one is the data we're tracking, do they all have the same fields? Every cat has a weight, it has a color, it has an age. Every dog has a weight, a color, and age. Those are probably two types of data that could be rolled up under a single entity called animals, right? Apply that same kind of thinking to all of the decisions you're making when it comes to creating one table or multiple tables for your data. The second is, if your reporting is becoming much more difficult than you think it really should be, then it could be because your data is much more complex than it really needs to be. So when reporting starts to become a challenge, I usually look at the structure of the data and start asking myself, can this structure be made more efficient in any kind of way? And can multiple tables be consolidated into one table to make my job easier? The third sign is when we start having to create new tables for every time we have a new type of data or a new period or a new category. For example, say we've got three tables. One is a table from projects of 2024, the next is projects from 2025, and the third is projects from 2026. If we've got to create a whole new table for projects of 2027, then we're probably able to make that a little more efficient and create a single table of projects. And so when it comes to how do we actually fix this issue, there's a very simple trick that we like to use when we start to normalize databases and start to consolidate multiple tables into one. And that is, we simply add a new field to distinguish the sets or the different groups of data that are of the same type. So projects from 2027, instead of building those out into a new table, we simply add a drop-down field in our projects table for the year. And then we have options in that list for 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, etc. We don't have to keep creating tables for every new year of projects. So in this database of leads, we've got three separate tables of leads. Leads from New York, leads from Chicago, leads from LA. And obviously, we don't need these three different tables. These are all different tables of the same type of data, same fields, same columns, same all of that. And wouldn't it be so much more efficient if we could just have a single table of leads with a drop down for each of the different locations that the leads are related to? That would make all of our automations, interfaces, forms, integrations, etc., so much more efficient to build. So what we've done is we've created a normalized version of all of these tables where we have a single field for location with drop downs for each of the cities, and then we can create other views of that data with filters for each of those locations. So I can quickly click to my New York leads by going to the New York filter or the New York view. Same thing with Chicago, same thing with Los Angeles. And then in my overall all leads page, I can see all of my leads grouped by location in one place. And so when I make one change to, the phone number field, if I want to rename it here to phone number, for example, I don't have to change it in three different places and then four different places, then five different places when I start adding new tables. Now, there are a few very, very specific cases in which you may want to actually have different tables for the same type of data. And one of those cases is when you are trying to avoid hitting record limit. Airtable has record limits, so to work with this particular platform, you may have to have some workarounds where if you're going to reach that record limit for a particular table, you may want to create a second table to be able to store that data. But that is not the most efficient way of doing it. That is just a workaround to get around the record limit. So to summarize, we want to build out multiple tables only when necessary. Whenever we can, we want to build out a single table with additional fields that help us distinguish different groups of our data within that single entity. And that will help us build way more scalable systems down the line so that our jobs are easy. We can build fun, interesting, connected systems, and we don't have to pull out our hair along the way. All right. So if you like this video and you want more content and want to ask questions specifically about how to build out your Airtable system, we've got the community in the link in the description. Go ahead and join. It's free, and hope to see you there. All right. Thanks for watching.